This is Heinrich from the Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns podcast. You're listening to one of the shows on the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can find all the other shows at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, President of the Non-Threat Assassination Squad, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. So you got a gun and your concealed carry permit. Now you need a holster, and not just any holster. You need a holster that is custom made for your gun, one that provides secure retention and which is comfortable for you to wear all day long. What I want you to do is check out our friends at Hog Holsters, HAWG holsters.com. Veteran-owned and operated, Hog Holsters offers a custom line of inside-the-waistband holsters, sheaths, and magazine carriers in multiple colors and mounting options for the most popular handgun models. They're fully adjustable for cant and ride height, and they're handmade in the great state of Arizona using all American parts. Every part from the Kydex right down to the screws is made right here in the USA. Get a quality handmade holster, great customer service, free shipping on every order, and you can save 10% off your order of $30 or more when you use the promo code USC10 at checkout. HogHolsters.com, HAWG holsters, helping America wear guns. HogHolsters.com. Our special guest today is Andrew Aguinaldo from Chicago, Illinois. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today. Thanks. How are you doing today?
I'm well. I'm excited to have you here. We met at the Illinois State Championship, and I'm glad you agreed to come on here, even though you got to meet me. Tell us a little about yourself. Tell us what you do for a living there in Chicago.
Yeah, so I'm out in Chicago, Illinois. I work at a large pharmaceutical company up north in the suburbs. I do a lot of digital product development. I grew up in Illinois. I grew up outside of Chicago in a small suburb of Grays Lake, Illinois. I went to college in Chicago, worked professionally in Chicago. And then after that, I moved up to California for some work. And after a few years out there, I moved back to Chicago to be closer to family.
So you have spent all of your life, as I mentioned when we met, you've spent all your life behind enemy lines in two different anti-gun states. How did you get introduced to firearms? Yeah,
that's a good question. So I would say that my interest in firearms started at a pretty early age. My dad used to take me to gun shows and, showed me his 1911 when I was really young, maybe like 5 or 6 years old. But I didn't own my first, my own handgun until maybe a year ago, exactly this month. When I was out in California, I wasn't in the gun, so I never really understood what they meant by that state being not exactly gun friendly.
Right.
And then when I moved back to Chicago, I still wasn't into firearms. I didn't own my own gun at the time. But then when I moved to Chicago, that's when I got my first firearm. And it sort of happened in that my father passed away and left behind a bunch of firearms. And, he had like a AR-15, his old 1911, and, I was left with possessions. And, I thought it would be smart to, know how to handle them properly, know how to maintain them, and just, know how to use them. So I went to my local gun range, Caliber Tactical out in Waukegan, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And I met a really great trainer. His name was Andy Browning. And I brought my dad's 1911. It's a Series 70. I think it was from over 30 years ago. A really nice, solid steel gun.
Right.
And he showed me how to, shoot it correctly, how to maintain it, and just how to handle it safely. And then it was after that where I'm like, I'm working now. I have my FOID card, and I think this might be a good time to get my own gun. So Maybe it was 2 or 3 weeks after I took that first class that I went to another gun store and bought a Glock 19 as my very first handgun. And that was the gateway to what my new hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you get introduced to competitive shooting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's go back to when I got my first gun. It was a Glock 19. I remember it was maybe a couple of weeks after that where I was really trying to learn how to shoot the gun correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on YouTube. I took an introduction to handgun class. And it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I got that gun, I took a class that was like a level 2 handgun class.
Mm-hmm.
And there, the instructor was a competition shooter. And, he had a shooting and he walked up to me. He's like, you should definitely do like practical shooting competitions. You're really good for, your experience level. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I went home and I just Googled like practical shooting competitions. And that's where I learned about the world of, competitive handgun shooting and, USPSA, IDPA, IPSC, Steel Challenge, all of those things. They all sort of showed up when I Googled that. And I'm sure we've all seen, the How to Hold the Gun Properly by Robert Vogel video where he shows his really crazy grip. That was sort of like the first video I watched on like how to hold the gun, in parentheses correctly. But then I looked up who Robert Vogel was and saw that he was really good at this sport called IDPA. And that's sort of the rabbit hole I went down was IDPA because that's sort of the first thing I saw.
Right.
And I looked up, how do you do an IDPA match? So I went online, looked up literally local IDPA match. And there was one, again, at my local range at Caliber. And they had one every once a month on a Saturday. And that's sort of the first match that I went to. And I would say it was a really good experience.
What do you remember from that first local match? Were you the guy who walked in with the Uncle Mike's holster, or were you were you a little more prepared than that? And was it everything you expected it would be?
It was everything I would hope it would be. So when I first got to the match, what I really liked, the reason I went to this match is because the match director, Tom Ropers, he said that there was a new shooter briefing at the beginning of the match. Mm-hmm. So people who had never done the match, like an IDPA match before, they can, take 20 minutes before, while people are shooting to really understand how the game works and learn what the rules are. And he and a lot of the other SOs really just sort of really opening about the rules and how things work and just answered any questions that I had. And I think it was that openness to questions and not feeling like you're asking dumb questions that really made me feel confident that this is something I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So first match, didn't really know the rules. I still have footage of it and just trying to stay safe and understand that I was doing things correctly. I had done a little bit of holster drawing beforehand, understanding how to draw correctly and getting the right gear. And that was something I tried to do correctly the first time. So, I looked up, best IDPA holster, Comtac, right? Best magazine holders, Comtac or Blade Tech, right? Best belt, whatever belt there are, whatever handgun belt there was, that's what I got. So I think I did okay on the very first match with gear selection. So I feel good. I feel pretty good about that.
So now you just started a little over a year ago, right? In IDPA. So I had my first match in June, and we are just out of June. So yeah, about a year and a month or so. So in that short time, you have gone from zero to hero, so to speak, from just getting started to master in SSP and expert in 5 other divisions. Either you are really super freakishly good, or you've really, really worked at it, or a little bit of both. Which is it? It's definitely lots of work that people don't see behind the scenes. It helps to be really into firearms and being naturally good at it because you've been shooting your whole life. But at least for myself, when I got into it a year ago, I literally had never handled a gun before. My dad's gun was the first gun I've ever shot. But I think that one thing that's helped me is really enjoying learning how to shoot correctly, and really enjoying practicing. In regards to practice, so
from when I first started to today, I remember like Googling like how to shoot correctly or whatever. But then I remember I ran to the Ben Steger podcast, and he talked a lot about the importance of dry firing. And I didn't really understand what that meant. But, at first I thought it was just like, going to your basement, making sure your gun's unloaded and just pulling the trigger, standing there and making sure the sights don't move. But I did that every day for like a month until I can pull that trigger without the sights moving. And I'm like, the dry fire thing is helping with my accuracy. I wonder if it helps with other things. And that's where I sort of evolved like the dry firing to just, pulling the trigger to moving and reloading and drawing. And
right.
So from day one, I've been dry firing, I don't know, maybe 4 times a week for the past year.
Nice.
With live fire, maybe once a week if I'm not busy at work or have other family obligations. So yeah, lots of dry fire and once a week live fire. That'll do it for you.
Very nice. So how long after that first local match before you jumped into a sanctioned match?
Maybe 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. We did that first match. I met my friend Francisco out there. You met him out in Illinois.
Yep.
So we met at that first match, and I'm like, dude, we should do this like big Wisconsin state match. And he's like, yeah, that'd be really cool. And I'm like, it's $100, but it's lots of stages and get to drive up. It'll be fun. He's like, all right, let's just do it. So yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. It wasn't very long.
What do you remember about that day? And was that an eye-opener going from the local match to a big state-sanctioned match?
Yeah. From that match, what I remember the most, I don't know if you went to that match, but it was extremely hot, like ridiculously hot. I think the words that I would describe that match as, for me, is unprepared. Because we had gone from that indoor match maybe a couple weeks ago to this 12-stage outdoor match in the summer heat, a day after it had rained.
Oh.
So we didn't have a cart. We didn't bring any water. We brought everything on shoulder bags. We were wearing gym shoes in the mud. We didn't bring any hats or sunscreen.
Oh, God.
So yeah, you could already kind of imagine our experience. But the important thing to note was that it was a lot of fun. We definitely learned a lot of things that we had to improve on. And, I think that's what makes it so memorable, is just by how shocking it was.
Right. Sometimes the best lessons are the ones that are the hardest learned.
Yep, exactly.
So since then, now the funny thing, when I walked up to you guys after the match in Illinois, and you guys were wearing Cross Timbers Shooting Club shooting shirts with the big Texas colors and the star, and I walk up and I'm like, fellow Texans, what's happening? And you guys are like, we're from Chicago. Explain how that happened.
Yeah, so, after Wisconsin, I would say that was the day we became hooked on shooting and IDPA as a sport in general. So we went to the Lone Star IDPA match out in, I think it was Crescent.
In Crescent. Yep.
Crescent, Texas, in October, I believe. Mm-hmm. So that was our first match that we've ever traveled to or flown to. We even brought our girlfriends along just for fun. But yeah, we were like, if there's a better place to go shooting guns, it's probably in Texas. He's like, yeah, that's probably right. So October comes along, we fly out to Crescent, Texas for the match, and again, another big match, but we came prepared this time. We went to Walmart. We bought a cart. We brought water. We brought a big sun hat because we thought it was going to be really hot. But, because in our minds, we think Texas is going to be like 90 degrees, like beautiful, sunny pastures.
You'd be surprised.
No, it was raining and there was a lot of mud.
Yep.
And we didn't bring any raincoats. So we were still unprepared.
Yep. I feel your pain.
Yeah, so we got slotted up with a couple Texans there, and they're a really cool, fun bunch of dudes. And what was cool about the match is that the match included the jersey. So up until that point, we didn't have any shooting jerseys or like that we owned personally. And that's sort of why we had it. Basically, we only had one jersey to use, and it just became our official match day jersey, just because that's one we had.
Adopted Texans.
Yes, adopted Texans. That's us.
Yep. One of our previous guests, Louis Freeman mentioned that you guys had squatted with them and enjoyed shooting with you. So I think they adopted you.
Yes, I've literally tried to find every excuse to fly out to Texas and shoot there because it's just the group of people out there is amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we've got a bunch of great matches coming next year, so look forward to seeing you come down.
Oh, I plan on it.
Awesome.
Definitely.
All right,
hopefully I'll have a New Jersey by then.
Yeah. If not, well, you warn us so that we know what to look for, because we'll be looking for the Cross Timber shirt.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit before we got started about the kinds of questions that I like to throw at people, and how you wanted to come at this fresh. So that's good.
Of course, surprising.
A lot of the earlier guests sort of thought they knew what they were getting themselves into because they'd heard a few episodes. The second half of the episode, I like to do a segment I call "Pick Your Poison." So I'm going to throw some either or questions at you. You based on your experience and your philosophy in shooting, you tell me what you prefer, one or the other. All right, you ready?
All right, sounds good.
Let's do it. I'm not going to ask you the one about shooting all 16 stages in one day because you're a young guy and you've got good legs, and so I assume that would not be a problem, so we'll skip that one.
All right.
Standard stages. If you're at a major match, tier 3 or higher, and they've got a standard stage, and it's not like Texas. One of our former guests, Bora Angel, who is the match director for Collin County, likes to put multiple standard stages in a match. So let's assume it's not one of those. You have one standard stage. Would you rather do it first stage of the match, first shot of the day, or the last stage of the match?
I like those. I like to do those first. And the reason I like to do those, should I give an explanation?
Yes.
Yes. How it works? All right. So the reason I like to do those first is because it helps set the pace for the rest of the match for you. Mm-hmm. If you have a good process of knowing how to shoot well during a match, and you go into that standards of really killing it, it really sets your pace for the rest of the match. So in Illinois, we had that one standard stage with it was like that 4 to the body, 2 to the head, with the hardcover on the sides of the tuxedo target.
Yep.
If you kill that stage on the very first one, you're going to feel really good the rest of the day.
Right.
Assuming you don't miss. That's the caveat. If you miss, you throw all 4 shots into the hardcover, then you got some thinking to do. Like, you have to remember your process. You have to think about your mental game and really think about what you're doing for the rest of the match, just to make sure that, you don't repeat those same mistakes again.
Right.
But if you do well, it makes you feel good, and you're going to shoot well because of it.
Okay, gotcha.
And the reason I wouldn't do it last, is because if you're coming in hot from 12 stages, you're tired, you're starting to not really care at that point because you have no idea where you're at in the match.
Right.
You might just totally throw it, but then realize that you were doing well, and because you didn't care on that last standard stage, that you completely threw first place.
Right.
So I've seen that before too. So I prefer to do those first for that reason.
Gotcha. I like it. All right. You talked about how you'd spent a lot of time working on accuracy with your dry fire early on before you varied your practice. Would you prefer a wide open stage, no hardcover, no non-threats at, say, 20 yards, 25 yards, all the targets? Or everything really close inside of, say, 10, but lots of hardcover and lots of non-threats?
Oh, that's a good question, because Illinois, so the past Illinois was a lot of open targets, pretty close. The pace was a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And in Wisconsin this year, there's lots of partials. It was very challenging and a lot more technical. Mm-hmm. From just sheer fun, I really do enjoy the open targets that are a little bit closer. You get to run around a lot more. You get to be a little more loose with your sight pictures and just sort of blast away. But I do also enjoy the challenge of the more technical stages as well. But if I had to choose, let's do open targets that are close.
Okay. So everything up close with lots of non-threats doesn't bother you?
No.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's see. You are an expert in, well, you're a master in SSP. You're an expert in everything except what? Revolver and bug and PCC. Is that right?
Yeah, all those other ones.
Okay. Of those three remaining, if you could only shoot one of those for the entire year, which would you choose?
Between PCC, revolver, and bug?
Yes.
I would do probably bug. I have a little 365. I shot a bug match recently, and that was a lot of fun. It was definitely a challenging, game with the reloads and the sight pictures being a little bit more strict, just because it's literally a tiny gun.
Right.
But also has practical reasons because that's what I used to carry around, and you're getting a lot of practice with that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I also don't want to get mace fun up with the PCC. So, yeah.
How hard is it to shoot PCC in Chicago?
Oh, I haven't even tried. I'm not looking to find out either.
All right. You talked about the weather in the differences in weather in Texas and in Wisconsin at your sanctioned match experiences. If you had to choose, would you choose freezing cold or scorching hot, 30-degree weather, or 100 degrees?
Ooh, let's make it really hot. I would prefer the heat. You're a lot more loose. You can run around. You're not miserable like standing in the cold. And also your fingers just work better in the heat. I remember when I was in Wisconsin, there was a point where it actually got really cold and our hands started sort of seizing up a little bit. And I remember I went into one of the stages with cold fingers, and I started shooting, and I realized I couldn't feel the trigger prep anymore. Like my finger, it felt like I wasn't pulling anything, and I was just throwing shots where I didn't mean to, and it was unexpected. So if I had to do it, I'd rather be in the heat.
Gotcha. I'm going to guess that I know the answer to this one, but who knows? Well, I'll throw this one out here. Would you rather shoot on the move, or would you rather shoot moving targets?
I'd rather shoot on the move or shoot moving targets. I like shooting moving targets. I think they're a little bit more challenging. I don't know if in Illinois they had a lot of those interesting moving ones, but those were a lot more fun to me than moving while shooting, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know what you've experienced in terms of. I mean, how many sanctioned matches have you been to?
I think I've done 4.
Okay.
4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay. So this one, I don't know how much variation you have seen in this, but I've seen matches where you either have a meal in the middle of the match where everybody just sort of stops and sits down and eats and then picks up where they left off, or they have the meal at the end of the match, or sort of a variation of the two where you sort of have if you want, you can go like in North Carolina. I remember they did this thing where if you wanted to go get lunch, you could, and then they served a big meal at the end for all the shooters. If you had your choice, though, generally it's either mid-match or post-match. Which would you rather do?
I would do post-match. That's my ideal. I don't know. I just don't like eating a big lunch during matches. I just feel like I feel full and I want to take a nap. God forbid I have to use the restroom in those porta potties. No, not doing that.
That's a more practical reason right there.
Yeah.
You never know with match food what you're going to get. That's right.
Exactly.
All right. So you've probably seen this, and if you've shot some pretty high level matches at this point, you've probably seen one of I like to call it the hold my beer stage, where you come to a point of cover and there is usually a steel popper or an activator that activates a disappearing target, either a drop turn or a short presentation, something that pops out and then back disappears or pops up from behind a barrel. But at the same time, you could engage another paper target before you wait for the disappearing target to fully present. I've seen people do this one way or the other. They either take that risk and go to the paper and then try to come back to the disappearing target, or they won't risk it. They'll play it safe. They'll wait for the disappearing target to fully present itself, shoot that, and then clean the rest of the stage. Are you the kind of person that likes to take those risks, or would you play it safe in that kind of situation?
I I would say that in the context of a big match where there's a lot of stages, and might be like maybe the one or two stages that has something that we're the opportunity to do something like this. I would play it safe. The reason being is that the risk of you missing that target is 5 seconds, and you really probably might only gain 1 or 2 seconds by risking it. Mm-hmm. And you can make up that time in all the other stages by just being more efficient with your movement or calling your shots and just being quicker. So that's what I would say. Play it safe and don't try to go for home runs during big matches.
Gotcha. Would you do it at a local match?
Oh yeah, of course.
All right. So at this point, about a little over a year into your shooting career, which part of your game would you say is your strong point, and which part of your game needs the most improvement?
That's a good question. I would say that at least my strong suits are my foot speed. Like I can run pretty quickly, and I'm pretty nimble on my feet. I've been working a lot on my speed, like having my gun up ready getting my gun up ready into position before I get into it, and just being more efficient with my movement. Mm-hmm. After the Illinois match, I realized that some things that I need to work on are being able to call my shots better. And that there were times where I caught myself looking for bullet holes, and I know I should not be doing that. So I need to train on calling my shots and leaving them. Mm-hmm. Also, firing a shot and leaving once you make that last shot. There was a few times where I was watching my match footage where I would shoot a target twice, and for some reason I would just kind of be standing there. And I think it also ties into me looking for bullet holes.
Right.
So just leaving right when you fire that last shot and being just a little bit quicker like that. That's something I need to work on in the next few weeks. Gotcha.
This is a question that I've asked less and less, but I thought I might throw this one at you just out of curiosity. This is kind of an odd question, but I've gotten some interesting and odd answers, so I thought, what the heck? Let's see what comes out here. Besides your gun, your holster, the mag carriers, ammo, and all the regular stuff that everybody else brings to a match, is there something that you take with you to a match you have to have in your range bag with you at every match without fail? You got to take it with you, and why?
That's a really good question. So besides all the obvious gear stuff, gun stuff, shoes, clothes, things like that, that's a challenging question. I'm looking at my stuff right now, actually. I would say that there is one item I bring to every match. I'm sure everyone has a hat, but for some reason I have this need to wear this Bass Pro Shop hat to every match, and I usually wear it backwards. Like if you look at all my match footage or pictures, I'm always wearing this Bass Pro hat that's backwards. Has like the big yellow logo.
Right.
I don't know why. I think that was the first hat I bought when I first started shooting, just because it was a $3 hat at Bass Pro Shop. And I've just been wearing it ever since, and it sort of turned into my like good luck charm hat. It just I put it on, I just feel like I'm like in the zone. And it's funny because I wear a Bass Pro Shop hat, but I don't ever really buy anything from there. So that might hurt my future. That might hurt my future sponsorship. So,
we might want to cut that part out. Yeah.
But no, it's my lucky hat, I guess. So that's usually what I bring to every match.
Well, it's only been a year, and you've taken off and really taken to the game. What is it about this game? As we kind of wrap up here, what is it that you love so much about it? You're devoting 4 nights a week to practice, and you're trying to get more serious about the mental game, setting goals to achieve expert and master. Why IDPA, and why do you love it?
Yeah, that's great. I would say that the number one thing I like about the sport the most is definitely the people. Since I've just started shooting in general, like the firearms and competition community, all the people I've met have been really down to earth, wholesome people, always willing to help you learn or answer questions that you might have. I would say that the reason I keep coming back is just because people are so nice. I mean, I'm flying out to Texas, I'm meeting people like Lewis and the whole Eastern Texas crew, and even locally meeting lots of new people. That's by far been the reason I've continued shooting, because you just meet so many interesting folks.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, it was great to get to meet you face to face, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for doing it, and good luck in the future, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you at a match not too long from now.
Perfect. And can I do a quick shout out real quick?
Absolutely.
Is that a thing?
Oh, sure. You'll be our first.
Can I? Oh, perfect. So yeah, if I can give it a shout out to a few people who've helped me out so far in the past year. Shout out to a lot of my friends and a lot of my training partners, especially my buddy Francisco Balcazar, who you met out in Illinois. He's been with me, training with me, day one and pushing me to help me get to where I am now. Shout out to my family, my mom, my siblings, Mark and Jenny, and also my sister-in-law, Jennifer. And last but not least, shout out to my longtime girlfriend who's been dealing with my shooting shenanigans for the past year. Without all of these people, I wouldn't have been able to make it as far as I have so far. So thank you all.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.